This is the Makerviews podcast. Welcome to the show. Hey, welcome back. I'm Scott Matson, founder of Makerviews and host of this new season of Makerviews called The Music Makers. I started Makerviews back in 2017. And it's led me to meeting so many amazing makers. Today, now in 2025, I own and operate Missoula, Montana's longest running recording studio. More about the studio later. Today's guest on The Music Maker is Phillip Lammonds. Our conversation kicks right off into some stage setting information as we were looking around each other's environments. And then towards the end, we kind of reference some of the things at the top, like fly fishing and the outdoors. Phillip is a real salt-of-the-earth guy. He's very well known and a highly respected songwriter, based in Nashville and originally from South Carolina. He shares insights into being represented by a publishing company as a songwriter, and some of the benefits and details of that based on his situation. With his guitar in hand for the majority of the interview, he even gives us a private show towards the middle and plays some ideas throughout the recording of this episode. I only wish that we had been in person to mic that up and capture it a little bit better. Phillip has written over 4,000 songs in his career, and some of those have been picked up by Hootie and the Blowfish, Blake Shelton, and many more. I hope that you enjoy this podcast season. If you have any feedback or want to nominate somebody, please email me, scott@makerviews.com. Here's my conversation with prolific songwriter and artist Phillip Lammonds. What is, you got a Banner Gibson, like a 50s?
Well, this is a 39
Oh, wow.
Gibson. It's
Man.
a J35. It's before the Banners. I had a Banner or two. I've had a Banner or two. I've always liked them, but not loved them, you know?
Right.
These were before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And the Banners were after World War II.
Right.
So
The pre-war.
and they were trying to get after World War II was when the Banners came out, and it was all about the war effort, but it was also, those guitars were all made by women.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
And most of these were too, though, up until, because, the war effort was starting, late 30s. But, man, it's a wild thing to think about because, I mean, there's a lot of great guitars and a lot of things, and the Banner's hot right now. It's just everybody thinks, oh, well, because they've discovered it. It's kind of like the Doodle of Dog World.
Yep.
Everybody's got a new Doodle, but they just don't. I've seen some great ones, but man, even the great ones aren't like the J35s because
Yeah.
they're much lighter built, and they just got a big jump to them. They've got a Adirondack top, which most Banners don't. So anyway, I can bore you stiff on all that.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm a player too, and I've got a Martin, and actually on my 30th, treated myself to a Martin D41 of all things. Quite a bit of bling.
Wow, yeah, that's cool. Might as
And
well. This is a 62, but it's really a killer guitar.
geez, I bet.
It's not supposed to be as good as it is,
Right. No, it
Um,
looks like you had a hell of a collection there. Yeah, very nice.
well, I'm really not about what it is. It's just got to sound great,
Yeah.
This is Muddy. Come here. Come on. Come on.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
Muddy.
Muddy?
Yeah, my bird dog. All right,
Hey, Muddy.
get. Ruby's around here somewhere.
Awesome.
So where
Well,
are
hey.
you?
Yeah, I'm in western Montana, Missoula, Montana.
Oh wow. I
Yeah,
love it out
so
there, man. I love it out there. You live out there year round?
yeah, I'm born and raised Montanan, and grew up in the plains, flatlands, and moved out into the mountains, Missoula, and yeah, spent some time in Bozeman as well. But
My son's in Bozeman.
okay, my brother is, yeah,
He's not there full time though.
yeah,
He gets out of there when it's cold. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina, so and that's where he's from. We're that, but I've
mm,
gotten to know a good bit about Montana. There's a company that hired me to be the broker in charge for. I had a real estate license for years.
yeah.
It's called Fay Ranches. You familiar with them?
Fay ranches,
They, yeah, they're a big firm there. They're mostly
yeah,
around Bozeman, but they do a lot out of
okay.
state too.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm
But
not
I,
familiar with.
yeah,
Huh.
they're yeah, you probably wouldn't be, but I love that area. I've got a really good friend in Helena who's a fishing guide there.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is,
yeah. That's
yeah,
I grew up in Great Falls. It's right out there on the Missouri near Helena. Yeah.
yeah. I fished that, the land of giants and all that. I love all that.
Yeah.
Big
Well,
fish, great time.
this is awesome to have you on. So I don't know if you got the background of this is called Makerviews, and yeah, it features this season is called the Music Makers. So it features
Yeah,
a variety of makers from craftspeople, woodworkers, leather workers to music makers, writers like yourself.
yeah.
I think, yeah, you've already kicked off a few kind of interesting talking points. So I'm curious, Philip, on your background. You mentioned at the top of the call here, real estate, fly fishing. Yeah, where are you from, and kind of what's your background, and how'd you make
Yeah.
way into music?
Well, the Carolinas are into music anyway. The Carolinas are is probably as musical a place as you could be. And it has to do with bluegrass is so embedded there, and really from an organizational standpoint, whatever bluegrass started, Kentucky gets a lot of credit for it, but most of the players are in like North Carolina and the Tennessee border, that area. And so there's that's a big thing. And there's a basically, if you look at the mountains, where they came, the settlers came across the North Carolina, to some degree South Carolina, but mostly North Carolina, where they landed in the Outer Banks, they came across, and then they hit the mountains, and they became hillbillies.
Mm,
And hillbillies, ended up. It wasn't like you were going to do that in Montana.
mm,
They were up there making whiskey, and they were doing a lot of things, but they brought their own livestock, and
yeah.
they had a couple pigs, and I just know a lot of people that even today live that life, and I think about the tones that come out of those, that lonesome sound that comes out of that group of people.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people that are trying to sort of emulate that, but that real lonesome kind of high lonesome,
Mm,
it's that, what it'd be like, something like uh it's South Carolina, many tall pines. And that would be the version of
nice.
that song. That'd be in South Carolina, and which was Graham Parsons, and
Mm,
he was in South Carolina, but he wasn't that high lonesome sound, but that real bust you in the head
yeah.
sound comes from a lot of places in your body. It's not just you know the words to the song.
Well,
And
what about like I suppose when you say that, I'm thinking, yeah, you referenced me being up north, up west Montana, but I'm thinking Soggy Bottom Boys and Dan Tominski, like Man of Constant Sorrow. Is that kind of that
yeah,
same?
that's it. The same thing. It's all that same ilk.
Yeah.
That was mostly well, the Man of Constant Sorrow was essentially Ralph Stanley. Ralph Stanley introduced that song to the world, and I think it
Right.
had some Elizabethan background before that, but
Right.
But then you take the way he sings and he they inflect in that whole bluegrass chain of hierarchy, and they just know what. I mean, it's not even a constant thing or some of conscience things. It's just basically that's how they sing.
Yeah.
You know, I am a man of constant sorrow.
Right.
Yeah, are they? Yeah, I am a man, constant sorrow. So you can sing it anywhere, but just get that. You got to get that high lonesome thing in there, you know.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's beautiful.
you know,
Nice.
Dan's a really good friend of mine. You know, I've
Is
been
he?
lucky. Yeah, I've been lucky to write some songs on his last two records. I've got songs on.
Yeah, so tell me more about, I mean, yeah, I mean, prolific writer from, what I see, it's 4,000 plus songs later. How'd you get into this, Philip? I mean, what's your path of, the words are just there, or yeah, what's kind of your thoughts around?
Okay, so just simple. The story that I can say is I know that I was there. It all parts of this story is I started a band just kind of out of college. I knew we had some friends and we liked to sit around and play. And I had bluegrass bands. I was in bluegrass bands in college and before college and in high school.
Mm,
And it was, just sort of got into that culture. And I knew a lot of people that were in it. And we made a band that was really more of a button down Grateful Dead, you know?
mm,
And it was because we were all from different backgrounds a little bit, but there's the Blue Dogs and Bobby Houck. He had his upbringing, and he had, he spent a lot of time in prep school and places like that. And Hank and I were much more in another place. But Bobby's was a great singer and a great sort of interpreter of things, and it's just great. This made this really cool band, and we
mm,
could stretch into those realms of bluegrass and those things, and we got to be known for some sort of a hub band that anybody could come sit in and play with us. It was kind of like
nice.
the band, you
Yeah.
know, and so we were just that, and but we had one thing that one not it wasn't a flaw. It's just you get in this thing, you just do what you know, and what we knew were other people's songs.
Mm,
And we got kind of some wink, nod things from different record companies over the years that said, to some degree, you need to write your own songs, and we'd be interested in talking to you, because the
mm,
sound was there. We didn't have that much desire to go that much further or harder or faster. It didn't matter. We were just enjoying what we were doing, but I did take it to heart, and I said, "Well, I just started thinking about what songs look like and how long they are, and you sort of really examine them, and
mm,
got to know people like Paul Kraft and Sean Camp and all these other guys. And then it really occurred to me that they could actually do this for a living, and people saw it as a legitimate thing, And it was that simple that I didn't realize. I mean, I remember Paul Kraft asking me, who was a great songwriter, and a publisher, but he had, drop kick me Jesus through the goalpost of life, and all these great songs, and the Gambler, he was the publisher of that, so he knew a
wow.
song, but he would actually coach me, and on writing songs, and he would take and write out all these lyrics, and we'd stand away from it way back off the wall and just look at the body of what the shape of those things were, and they say, well, that's Chris
Mm,
Christopherson, and most of them had that sort of shape, and so you
huh.
started to see things from a different place, and then you just tell the truth as best you know it. And
Amazing.
it's yeah.
And when did so I mean, yeah, you're talking about this background, with collaborating with Paul. Today you represented it's Curb/Word Entertainment, right? Some acquisitions there. When did they come into play? And I guess for maybe other aspiring writers that might be listening, how going from independent to being, kind of represented. Yeah, what was
It's
the
it's
process?
a it's a I'll put it like this. It's it's almost a fraternity or some sort of I believe this honestly that most publishers, before they bring somebody else into their fold, they scan their whole group to say, hey, is this going to be a good fit for what we're doing? Because and it's like a big science fair project for publishers. They're trying
Mm.
to find the chemistry and to find the things that, bring it out of this person, or this person's got this special little thing that will enhance what we do or what we're trying to do. And they all have different angles. Of course, everybody, at some level is shooting for getting airplay that
Mm.
matters and pays well, in which right now it's, ridiculous to think about what we have gone through and what we've lost, frankly, from theft, basically. Of
Streaming.
Yeah, yeah, it's just theft, and it's not theft by the consumer. It's theft. You know where it comes from. It's
Yeah.
somebody's backing the truck up in the garden and stealing all the vegetables and selling them down at the damn farmers market.
Yep.
It's the
Pennies on the
same thing
dollar.
with our song. It's just 100 different euphemisms you could use. But with that said, I don't sit around and worry about it. I keep pushing and doing what I do. And but Curb actually reached out to me through a friend of mine who I'd known back when I was really getting to know Paul Kraft, and I had a song, "One Love" for Hootie and the Blowfish. It was a big single, and that sort of prompted me to say, okay, I can do it from here, and I'm gonna it from back home in Georgetown and Charleston, Pawleys Island, that area. I could do it from there, and I could just it'll work, and it did a little while, and I ended up starting a real estate business just kind of reluctantly, but it
Mm.
worked out well as the same way, and then I decided I really wanted to get back into writing, but I hadn't dug in that much, and it wasn't 2 weeks after that or something very shortly after I was thinking that way, I got a call from a friend of mine, Tiffany Goss, and she had kind of been put in a position of by one of the publishing directors who said, find us a few people you would really like to work with, and that kind of thing. And I
Mm.
got the call, and then the funniest thing was the interview was when I picked up. I had an old flip phone, and I was actually just about to shoot an alligator
Oh.
when the guy calls, and I said, and I knew it was him because they told me he was going to call. And I said, man, can you just, I had it in my hand like that, and I was like, man, can you give me 1 second? I pulled the trigger, and he said, what was that? And I think that's really was my interview. I mean, I think, and that was, he's 500 miles away. But, it's, Curb has really and truly, everybody thinks about publishing companies. It's like a sweat box or some sort of, it's not. It's a really a creative, like I said, it's a science fair project. It's everybody's finding a different way to look at things and understanding things and making things matter.
Yeah.
And as a songwriter, that's what I have to think about all the time. Why does this matter? Who's going to care?
Mm.
And I think you don't ever get to the place of commercial songwriting till you get over that hump.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's a personal journey. You've got to go. I am going to study what I hear, study what I got, and I'm probably the worst in the world at actually following it to the T. So don't get me wrong, but
Mm.
uh, you know, and if you want representation, a publisher's the one to do that. They're going to deal with your copyright, keep your books about this, that, and the other, and they're going to get part of your money or half of your
Right.
money. But they're paying you all the money up. You're getting typically if you get a classic publishing deal, which I don't know what that is anymore, but I would just say this: Curb has been very, very good to me, and they frankly have done everything they ever said they would, and have never come to me and said you should do something different.
Awesome. So
So
you get that creative liberty still to make your
right,
own
yeah, I mean
calls.
it's and I don't ever feel any oppression from anybody in there. I think the whole culture that he's created is Mike Curb. He's created a culture that generates a lot of great music, and
Yeah.
and
Well, it's probably I appreciate you sharing that. That's really going to be helpful for some of those aspiring writers. And I imagine this is one hell of a hard question to answer, but we won't say your favorite session, but what have been, some of the most impactful and memorable throughout your career, writing and recording sessions? Yeah, I mean, feel free to play that, and then I'd be
yeah.
curious
Let's
on
see.
memorable sessions.
If it's just something like on the road way across Georgia, crossing bridges I should have burned. As I know way across Georgia, ain't no place there's anything to learn. You know, and you go into a chorus right there, a
Yeah,
big fill, something to it. I don't
beautiful.
know.
Yeah, it truly is. I wish that we had some better miking on you. We're just doing this, remote podcast, but geez, that sounded. I'll throw this through a compressor and see how that comes across. That was
There
great.
might be something there.
Truly. The beginning, I will say the beginning intro, I was hearing, God, I don't know the full lyrics, but actually it's Stapleton. That makes me a millionaire. Like Stapleton's Millionaire song. Just
Oh yeah,
that guitar riff, a little different melody, but yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Geez, awesome. Well, hey, yeah. So we'll pick up. Let's see, memorable sessions.
oh
What
yeah, yeah,
stands
yeah.
out?
Man, when you say sessions, I'm assuming you're talking about writing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was. It's funny. A lot of them are memorable. All of them I remember,
Mm,
but because I mean I really do. I would somebody could come to me and say, and I'm actually I'll say take that back because somebody last night the listening room said, "Hey man, we need to get together again," and I couldn't pull his name, but and finally got to the bottom of it. But anyway, that's a function of age. But I did say that when I thought about it, when you're thinking, what was it? It's probably the night I was in Sean Camp's. Um, he had a garage apartment over his garage that he had not built the house onto yet. Are
mm.
you familiar with who Sean Camp is?
No, no, I don't know. Sean Camp is
Well, Sean
relative.
Camp is uh, probably the most talented human I've ever met, and
Mm.
just from writing and, of course, musically. Are you familiar with the Earls of Leicester?
Sorry, not
Okay,
them
so
either.
all right, so there's
You know,
there's a whole bluegrass world, that's this there. But Sean and I wrote this song. What we were watching, Friends. This when Friends was a big show. We just
yeah,
happened to be watching and had a pizza ordered a pizza, and they kept using this. You are so not my friend, and you are so this, not that, the other. And we sat there and looked at each other, and I said, "Why don't we use so not? That I mean, is that something that's weird?" He goes, "You mean like we'd do any other song? We say, okay, you're so not my baby,
yeah,
you know, you're so not my baby." And we wrote it as a joke. And a couple weeks after that, Blake Shelton cut it, recorded it,
nice.
and he lost his record deal. And then it got recorded by who we had next? Josh Turner. Josh Turner.
Mm,
And Josh Turner made a really great record, and it's the one that became the song. And it was kind of one of the first songs, and then a couple hundred later, before I had another recorded, somebody grab it and record it. But and I
Hmm.
just don't ever think about it. I mean, you just know that there's a lot of songs out there, and you just go through the same motions every day, and it's just an exercise, and
Yeah.
it has a beginning and an end, and it has a sensibility, and it has hopefully what you did your best doing in it, and I go back and listen to songs that I forgot I wrote a lot of times.
Huh.
I'll think about that, and or I'll hear one somewhere, and I said, sounds familiar, and I might have written it, and I
Yeah.
know, and I'm not, listen, I'm not at all unique in that
Hmm.
realm. I mean, it's not, that's, I mean, if you think about it, if 365 days a year, if you write songs for 15 or 20 years, you know, average three a week, probably.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, maybe four. I know plenty
Wow.
of people write five, a week.
Jeez. So what about, I mean, and then transitioning kind of more recently, there's, well, we'll put it this way. Your buddy Lee Bryce, as far as I understand, he kind of got you out of the shadows, being a songwriter and saying, hey, we got to, you're overdue for getting your debut out there, your own originals. And, for the
Yeah.
listeners, Philip, his LP is called Cowboy Things. And most recently, before the call here, we got a thumbs up on the screen. I wonder where that came from.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, you introduced me to Muddy, your bird dog, and I'd have to say, that didn't make it into that full length, but I really like that "Why Don't Dogs," that new single. And yeah, I mean, maybe talk about going from writing for others to your, writing for yourself.
I still, I'll say that it's rare that I'm writing a song for others, as explicitly others. It's another song,
Mm,
and it's another twist usually, or another some other thing. But I don't really look at it like that. That it's okay. Now I'm doing something because I'm a different guy than this.
mm,
It's because it's not a charade. I mean, if you listen to most songs of mine that have been recorded in this area, they don't have much uh, to deny in them. I don't think there's any hidden tricks,
mm,
and I don't feel that way. But when I write, like with Lee and what you're talking about, and sort of, it was great to go back through my catalog and just see
yeah.
things that I'd forgotten and dug up. And I could do so many more records the same
Oh,
way, but you know, it does. You go back to early songs, and it's you'll run across some speed bumps. I mean, some, and a lot of them I go back and fix.
yeah.
I'll go back and fix a song that's 20 years old.
I
C-
noticed you had some other writers' credits, and then of course you featured some old buddies like Darius Rucker. And
Yeah.
what was, yeah, I mean,
Well, Darius and I did not write for this record. He came and sang on it.
right.
He came as a singing guest, and I've known him for 35 years. And and of course I wrote One Love, and he had a hand in, and Mark Bryan, which was a single of theirs. And so, but yeah, it's just it's really, I think, and Lee said this. He said everything you write is you, though. He said that's the thing.
Mm,
He said you write everything, and it was very. It some ways it was like he was saying it. I mean, I was like, "Are you complaining that I do that?" It wasn't that. No, it was more this. He said, when you write a lyric and you put it out there, you make sure it hits somebody between the eyes,
mm,
no matter what it is.
true.
And he said, and he was like, and it doesn't have to be when the song's happening. It
Hmm.
can be 5 years later.
After you've lived with it and processed it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's
What you said is shows back up. And that to me was a huge, and Lee. he has to filter so many songs, and he is a monster of a songwriter.
Mm,
He's one of the best songwriters in Nashville. Period. In the story. Lee Brice.
wow.
He came to town as a writer, and Lee's just undeniable talent, bulletproof.
Yeah.
And
How was he? What was his role? I mean, I know roles of what a producer is, but kind of take us into what the recording process was like, how he helped as producer.
well, I mean, he sort of uh, he basically wanted to make it. A lot of the things I'm going to say, I don't. It's because I spend time in studios, but I'm not speaking studio.
Mm,
And I was in studio yesterday. Yeah, but but he wanted to do it live, which it would be,
mm,
we're all connected. We're all in the same room. We're all kind of gathered around, and the microphones are collecting this stuff. So if you're out of tune, you can't tune it,
yeah.
on a machine, or if you're, you have to sing it again or something like that. Um, and we did most of them in one take on that record.
Wow.
And because we knew the songs, and the guys that had looked at it, you know, they could follow them, and I try to write songs that people can naturally sing,
Right.
so they can have some of it. I don't. I know one thing. If I've ever learned anything in this business is, you can impress someone. I mean, just you can just knock their pants off with a Telecaster or whatever. You can
Yeah.
impress somebody for a little while, but it's not long that you need to. You can move them forever. You have to do that. You have to say, "What are we doing here? Am I going to try to show you how good I am,
Mm,
or am I going to show you that I'm really not even here? This is you in this song."
hmm. Wow. That's a one really interesting mindset. And I think it goes back to you saying, kind of that authenticity. You have to embrace that, not just flash in the pan showiness. It comes across on all of your work, needless to say with cowboy things. I think you embracing that like coffee black and what I'd pay to do, it takes the
Yeah.
listeners in but it's also there's pieces to relate to, I mean yeah, that's beautiful.
Salt is getting more attention.
Would you be able to play that chorus or yeah, the hook on that or you've got
Yeah.
your beautiful pre-war Gibson there. Would be remiss to not ask.
I can do a verse and chorus. Sorry, I'm tuning. Still tuning.
Drop D.
No, I was in open G with a drop C when we were
Oh, okay.
talking. Uh, there we go.
Yeah.
Goodbye tastes like all the salt in the sea. It rolls off the tongue too quick and easily. Sometimes it burns like hell when it comes out. Yeah, I wish I'd left that goodbye in my mouth. Well, I'm sorry, seems to say the same old thing. Yeah, I guess that's why it's so hard to believe. It never makes much room for common ground. I wish I left I'm sorry in my mouth. 'Cause it's over now, I know how it feels when someone hands you that bitter, jagged pill. You try to swallow, Oh, but you can't swallow. And I love you is the worst one of them all. Such a dangerous and hard place to fall. It opens up the door for pain and doubt. Wish I left I love you. Wish I left I love you in my mouth. 'Cause it's over now. I know how it feels. Someone hands you that bitter, jagged pill. You try to swallow, you can't swallow. Then you swallow. Goodbye tastes like all salt in the sea. Flows off the tongue too quick and easily.
Man, beautiful.
And I sing it different every time, but
No, it's
you know who just Evelyn McCain just recorded that on his new record.
really
Yeah,
awesome. Geez, that's
and-
beautiful. Yep. And
yeah.
thanks for playing that.
Oh man, thank you,
Truly.
thank you.
It yeah, this is a pleasure to have you on, Philip. I mean, I'm curious to transition. You mentioned it a couple times, but just what is more so at the top you mentioned it. So you mentioned your career in real estate, but also we were chatting before the call. I'm based in Western Montana here at the Recording Center, Missoula, Montana. We had that Bozeman connection, Helena.
Yeah.
What is the outdoors? You also mentioned shooting that alligator during your interview. What is the outdoors for you? Is it kind of a, church? Is it grounding in a fast-paced
Yeah,
world?
it's definitely church, and it's definitely
Yeah.
it's food, it's church, it's it's just where you're supposed to be when you're not anywhere else, and it's just that kind of thing. It's I think there's a I mean I just admire everything that is around you. You know, I just see things and go, where, how, what, all the time. You know, when I'm outside.
Mm.
And I really, I was I'm still a licensed falconer, and for years, I hunted with a hawk,
Hmm.
and that was something that I really would love to get back into if I have the time. Yes, it's you got to if you're gonna take something out of the air and ask him to do all that work for a little while, I can put him back. You know, he'll be fine. But I definitely want to make sure I got the time. You know, but.
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
I fish a lot. And I'm not a one of those guys that says fly fishing
Mm.
because it's fishing. It's all fishing, but it's and I go fishing, and some they got different tools to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
so
No, I feel you. I mean, there's a lot of sacredness being in Montana around the honey holes and the fly fishing spots. I grew up throwing lures, fishing worms. I do fly fish as well, but fishing is fishing, and at the same time, they call it fishing. You're not always catching.
well, it's that thing of the whole in your world the whole Yellowstone
Yeah,
blanket is covering it up, and there's a sense of that's what it's like. And, you know, there's very few places where you live that if you spent the night outside, you could live. You
yeah.
know what I mean? If you just went and laid down outside somewhere,
All right.
and it's very few places you could do that and survive.
Yeah, I mean, be it natural elements, or that's why my wife and I have an 18-foot pole camper. We take a camper because
Right.
Yeah, elements, bears, all sorts of threats. Yeah.
Well, that's the point, and it's so romantic to people from another view, and you know they don't they never stood behind a can of bear spray.
No.
And I'm not discounting. I'm really just saying um, the concepts that people adopt and assume as their new identity, even,
Mm,
it's tiring.
right.
It's tiring sometimes because I know the trouble I've gone to get the fly right that's going to catch that brown that's hanging under that's right under that lip on that little bitty grass thing, and I know that I've got to probably throw that same fly at that same fish 40 times
Yeah,
and just keep it coming, and I know that I need to hit it just right 40 times before 41 gets bit.
exactly. I mean, yeah, that goes back to that's a craft. This is maker views, and it's the craft. I mean, they're essentially earned. I do feel like anyone can be a maker, and if whatever identity they want to adopt. But there's truth in, yeah, those the practice, the time spent, the 10,000 hours towards mastery.
And that's the way songs are, man. I got
Yeah.
to go every day. I write a song. At some level, I'm writing a song.
Mm,
And I think most people that are making things are making what they make, whether they got it in their hands or not. I'm a simple man.
here's the ad spot, and I'm actually sponsoring myself. So, similarly to how NPR puts out All Songs Considered, for example, well, the Recording Center is putting out the Makerviews Music Makers podcast. So I'm taking the remote guest interviews and doing all the post-production things, running the clips through compressors, doing noise reduction, and of course, you can expect to see some in-person guests here from the studio in the future. So let me take just a second to tell you about the Recording Center. Since 1986, the Recording Center has been Missoula's longest-running recording studio. I bought the business this year in 2024 after partnering with the previous owner who has retired. It's an extremely vibey place with a lot of vintage gear and a lot of great history. So to wrap this up, if you're needing any recording done, come to the Recording Center. I can even convert tapes to digital, or I can even duplicate CDs and DVDs. There's a lot of work that happens here in person, and then as well, if you need any mixing, mastering, editing, and other services remotely, please go to therecordingcenter.com or do it the old-fashioned way and call the studio phone at 406-721-4172. Thank you. Now let's get back to the show.
I've got a great guy that's building me a guitar. He's starting a company and he's building guitars, and they're kind of the renovated version of a Martin, and he's doing it with great wood and everything else and Canon like sounds. Like they're crazy great.
Hmm.
But he's that guy, and it's all he thinks and does and eats all day long. He just thinks about
Yeah.
that, and that's the way fishing is and stuff to me as well. That I can I like to go, and when I say something, do you fly fish? That question just annoys me, and I'm sorry. I mean, it shouldn't. I shouldn't be such a prick about that and
No, I
be
get it.
sort of cranky. But there's a sense of I really want that person to know that the reason it's a fly and reason because it's weightless, and we're putting it in a place that is 8 inches deep. Whereas if we throw it through something else, it would not. That fish would be gone.
Yeah, you throw
And
a big old spoon and it splashes, they're out of there. Yeah.
yeah, and you do that, but at the same time, you're probably in a pretty place. You're
Mm-hmm.
probably in a place that you've never seen anything like in your life, and that's what the deal is. And it's not whipping this thing over your shoulder.
Right.
like they do. I'm gonna learn to fly fish and show me how to do the whipping thing. And it's
Yeah.
that, but it's that, and it's tiring. I would much rather talk about great guitar playing and whatever else
Right.
from anybody. Y'all, you talk about that all day long, but when you go into fishing, you better get that's thin ice. It's just
Oh, it
thin.
is. And I know where you're coming from, that romanticizing of it.
Yeah,
And
don't ruin my book.
right. And you bring up the Yellowstone effect. There's the river runs through it effect. It's all very real. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You had river runs through it too.
Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
That was on the Madison, right?
Um, yeah, I think it was. It was down near Bozeman. Might have been the Yellowstone actually, because they have Brad Pitt Rock where you can go see where they filmed it. I think it's in Paradise Valley down on the Yellowstone River. Probably parts of it on the Madison too. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I was fishing the Madison. I always seem to have when I go on these trips. I have something wrong with something, and this day was the fact that put in on the Madison. The bottom of that river is the toughest place in the world to walk. It's
mm,
just the perfectly round cannonball size
yeah,
rocks
yeah.
for days and days and days and days and days.
You know, you
So,
mentioned you mentioned Helena. I found the Missouri in certain times of the year because it's dammed up there. Super
yeah.
mossy, just slicker than all hell. The moss and the it's hard
Really?
to, yeah, that's hard to wade at times. I don't know if you were going through in a drift boat or wading.
Oh, yeah, it's on a drift boat. I tell you, the guy, Jeff Laddig, it's called Living Waters,
Mm,
and he is singularly the most dedicated fisherman I've ever met. He fished in South Carolina, and he used to take me. I'd go fishing with him then, and he's going to be younger than me, but this guy, it's just I think he carries a fish in his mouth all the time, just in case.
yeah,
And but we went. My son and I went with him, and I've known him for years. He was, he's a fighter, firefighter, and he has a flats boat, in South Carolina that he redfishes and all seasonally, and then he's out there catching those big browns and rainbows out there, and
yeah,
I just remember him putting us on so many fish, and it's like it. One minute I said I kind of want it. I said, man, I'm not doing much here, but I feel like throwing something. He said, what you need to be doing is throwing a big streamer and do this right here, bam, bam. And I'm talking about we started, just.
nice.
But he was, you know, he makes you feel like way more than you do. You know what I mean?
That's a great guide. Yeah.
Yeah. But his name's Jeff Laddig. Um, Shafter Johnson is his partner in that thing, I think, at some level.
Mm,
And but they're both South Carolina guys, and
nice.
really, really, he's I think he's from New England originally, but he was in South Carolina when I met him first. But
Mm.
anyway, just I gave him a nod because I owe him a nod. He's really good.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure to keep that in, most definitely. Well,
Yeah.
hey, I want to be respectful of your time, but is there anything, where can folks find you? I would say that definitely check out Phillip Lammonds' album, Cowboy Things, latest
Yeah.
single, Why Don't Dogs. Where do you want to send folks?
The Instagram. Just follow me on Instagram,
Yeah,
and I guess I don't know that bleeds over into Facebook because I don't really pay much attention to Facebook, but my Instagram's kind of fun. Well, I get on and do have some little sessions in the morning every now and then.
yeah, I've been watching those.
Oh yeah, and I just kind of it's never really organized. It's just kind of I forgot to tell you kind of thing. That's what it is. Oh man, I meant to say I meant to tell you this, and
Yeah,
it's kind of the time to do that every now and then.
yeah,
Uh, Last time I saw you, uh, that is funny because I got these bunch of guys around Nashville. They're all their wives or somebody said you need to do that. and start being more active in this thing or something like that. He'd probably get all fussed at, and they're all looking at me like mad at me. But and I just normally, I've been, just a habit. I drink a cup of coffee and say good morning. Well, they're all doing that now. It's funny, and I've been giving them a hard time about it.
You're starting a trend, as they call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I said I'm gonna do like arm farts or something.
Yeah, there you go.
It's something like that.
See if they'll copy that. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Take this with you, buddy. The other thing I was gonna say is, I'll quit, but oh hell, it was. Uh, oh, guitar maker's name is Johnny Gray, and he is in London, Kentucky, and he's making one of the best. And Dan Tominski just got one of his guitars, and
Yeah,
Del McCurry's playing one of his now. So he's just
nice.
getting them trickled out into the system now, and they are amazing. They're
That's
amazing.
awesome.
They're amazing. Sound like any great old pre-war Martin I've ever heard. Um,
Sweet.
yeah,
Is it kind of like the Collins breakout type of deal?
it's a little more. It's a little more Martin than Collings.
Yeah,
Yeah, Collings are pretty slick
right.
and uh and I think and I kind of hope really because he's using very light wood, but I'm sure it's got a bolt-on neck like a Collings,
Yeah,
and that was kind of taboo for a lot of people, but if you play a lot and you do a lot and you don't want to do a lot, we need one with a bolt on neck.
right.
Every now and then.
Well, great, man. I appreciate it. Was there anything else you wanted to add for this podcast?
No, man, I think it's great what you're doing, and you're actually celebrating a lot of different cool things. I mean, you get a chance to do
Yeah,
that, and you get into the fishing and all that with it, but people make things, and people are proud of what they make. It never makes much room for common ground.
proud of what we make, indeed. We kind of cut the call here, had a little off-air chat without any natural ending for the show. Thanks for checking this episode out.
Now I know how it feels when someone hands you that bitter, jagged pill.